Okay, we're live. Hey, I'm Khadijah, and this is Market Pricing. We're doing our first live. I think everything's looking good. I'll check it back later. This is my first one. So, hi. Okay, we are here, and I titled this. Is everything there? I titled this live, Where's the Fear Coming From? Because I just recorded last night, I just recorded a reaction video to a principal designer, and she was talking about her role and her feelings about working in design and feeling sort of like thinned and stretched out and not really owning anything, feeling overwhelmed because, she would come and there would be changes to the product, changes to everything. And there wasn't an established protocol. There wasn't a sense of ownership for design anymore because everybody could prompt and everyone can iterate and everyone can ideate and all these things. And I thought it was really interesting because as she was speaking, it's going to be her lamenting the whole lack of time dedicated to design because everything moves so quickly, or just general issues around implementing AI and how the workflows, she didn't know how to navigate that, or the different tools and things like that. But apparently the company did a great job on upscaling everybody and giving everyone clear direction and ownership and control of what tools they use when it came to AI, how they implemented it. And so I was kind of taken off guard. Like, I was kind of shocked because what she was talking about was more of an issue that had already previously existed. And it just only wasn't really felt because there was that actual bottleneck of her being the designer or the design team actually having to make the mock-ups, actually having to do that, and everyone having to stop. Whereas now the train was running, and because they didn't have any established workflow and checkpoints and clear ownership and protocol around who gets to change what and when and how, everything was just going, and she felt just overwhelmed. So it was shocking. It was quite shocking because I can totally relate to not being able to, to having this concern and feeling overwhelmed and not knowing how to navigate all the different tools and all the different workflows and all the different directions you can go with AI because everything's changing constantly, and feeling overwhelmed, having to keep up, feeling overwhelmed with communicating your value, obviously. But her value was still there. It's just she wasn't actually, and it sounded like the team wasn't actually, really communicating that and managing that and making sure there was clear protocols for everything, because obviously you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen, right? So that was shocking. So I'm going to upload that video, and, I'll be continuing that theme on my YouTube channel, and I'll make sure to obviously add a link. But that's what I was working on today. But I have also been getting the school community set up because we have to start facilitating. We have to start, discussing the hard part, the difficult part, because that reaction video, I think that's a great case study in terms of what actually happens when you are not owning design, when your team is not owning design sufficiently so that, number one, everyone understands the value you bring and why it's important to have a design process. Okay, let's make that so clear. Just because you can move faster and farther with AI doesn't mean you're going in the right direction, right? Doesn't mean you're going in the right direction. And that should be something that's abundantly clear. It should be abundantly clear now as it was 10 years ago, as it was 20 years ago. because design is about ensuring that you're advocating for the user and you're developing solutions that can actually execute and actually facilitate the outcomes you want, the outcomes the business wants, and the outcomes the user wants, right? Come on. Let's slow down a little bit. I know that having these new tools and being able to iterate faster, but in the process, what are you going to lose? You're going to lose the same things you were going to lose, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's going to be a jumbled mess. There has to be protocol. There has to be organization. There can't just be too many cooks in the kitchen. Sorry, that's a little, that's like Gen Z slang. Or not Gen Z, but where did that term come from? I don't know. It's just a lot older. It's way past. So it's been interesting because all of these challenges I'm reading about on Reddit, the number one I'm reading is just the friction and the disdain for AI and not wanting to change the way you work, not wanting to adapt the way you work, not wanting to use these different tools. The fear, and number two is not communicating or being able to communicate the value of design. There is obviously a value to UX design. There's a value to having designers. Look at all the big companies, they have design and it has to work. It has to present the meaning and communicate and make sure actions are easy and you can execute what it is that you wanted to do in front of the computer. And just because I think we've got sort of, I don't know, lazy in a little bit of ways, we've sort of taken it for granted that design is here and it's so much easier now. And we're sort of just spoiled, I think, that we forget that. And we, as designers especially, we have challenges and we have difficulty communicating that value to even the rest of our team and to obviously product managers, engineers, and higher up even, because, oh my God, because it never stops. You don't get to stop explaining yourself, communicating yourself, advocating for your team, pushing for, this is where we're going, innovating, improving processes. You don't get to stop doing that. You don't just get to settle in and just do what you've been doing for the last, 5 years. You don't get to do that in tech. Things change and things move so quickly. We can't afford to do that. We have to stay ahead. We have to continually evolve and improve. That's just what we have to do. And in order to evolve and improve, we also have to make sure we're bringing everyone with us, right? Everyone has to come with us. Everyone has to understand what the value of design is, what the value of having a designer is, who we're advocating for, and why it's necessary to have design within the team. Because if everyone's just doing ad hoc, if the product manager has to do design, do the quality checks, do the business stuff, like that's a lot. That's why hello, product managers are not also the design team. That's why there's a separate design team. And yes, the AI has taken a lot off of our plates technically, and it will continue to do so. That doesn't mean design thinking has left the room. That doesn't mean the designer is not valuable anymore. And that doesn't mean you don't have to keep proving yourself and pushing and communicating why you're valuable as a designer. Like, I would want to make sure I'm communicating that all the time and making sure everyone else knows and making sure my work is not only speaking for itself, but also I'm clearly articulating what we're doing, what the KPIs are, what the metrics are, how this is improving things, how this has made the users so much happier, how it's improved our bottom line, how we've innovated when it comes to customer engagement, retention, all of these things. That requires design as well. So think about that. Think about that. So yeah, those are the top two things that I'm seeing in terms of resistance. And then it's just not something that we practice. It wasn't at the forefront of becoming a designer didn't mean running meetings and pushing back and do that's not the focus. The focus was before so much on tools and how do we produce this mock-up? How do we get this done? How do we, get through it? Because it was a lot of work before, and it still is a lot of work. Just because the prompt can, develop something, that doesn't mean it's doing the right thing. Just because something's produced doesn't mean it's the right or the good thing. You have to keep that in mind. There still has to be testing, there still has to be research, there still has to be some way to have a value judgment for it. Just because it's up doesn't mean it's right. And I think that I can help with helping other designers and other people in, product management, engineers, whatever, whoever wants to engage in design and within the product. Um, I can really help them articulate that and communicate that and advocate for the user in a way that's not going to be seen as a bottleneck. That's for sure. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Because no matter where you are in the product development stage, like, or where the organization is, whether it's just a startup or it's a mature organization, there's always going to be room to do the user testing. There's always going to be room to iterate and improve things. And it's always going to be necessary to communicate where it is you improved it, how you improved it, and make sure everyone's all on board to continually evolve. So, yeah, I'm excited. So, I put up the school community. I'll just drop a link in the Substack page. I'll just put a little note up there for the school community, but that's where we're going to get into the hands-on, the teaching. How do you facilitate? How do you communicate? How do you do that on top of what are the workflows? How do you integrate? How do you get started, on AI within design? That's always fun. So I hope this is inspiring because I feel like a lot of people are very down and very negative when it comes to design. But the more I'm doing my research and the more I'm looking at what's going on with other designers, the more I'm feeling, really confident that there's still going to be a place for design. And it just is going to require a different set of skills in terms of whether you spend 60% of your time doing the mock-ups or you spend 60% of your time making sure to facilitate and communicate um, that design quality and standard within the organization, within your teams, right? Okay, so that was just a quick live. Check out my post, check out the school community, check out the YouTube, and thanks for being part of my Substack and following me. I'm Khadijah. I'll talk to you later. Let's do